Hello again, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. And let me keep on the first the hazardous weather graphic here showing, let's see, I'll start in the south. We've got winter weather advisory out for the northern panhandle area, Haines, Skagway, Klondike Highway, Lynn Canal area, and that's for Sunday, for tomorrow, looking for, I believe, 4 to 6 inches of snow. Some areas could see more, other areas less there. But that's for the day tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon, at which time snowfall levels in the afternoon will start rising to about 1,000 feet. So the sea level locations will be changing over to rain early in the evening. Otherwise, high wind warning out for the Anchorage area, specifically not the entire city, but for Turnagain Arm and the higher elevations, Chugach Mountains, upper hillside. And that's out, let's see, for 9 p.m. this evening until 9 a.m. Sunday morning. And again, for Turnagain Arm, the higher elevations looking 40 to 60 mile per hour sustained winds with gusts possibly to 70 miles an hour. And farther north, Susitna Valley. Winter storm warning is out for, let's see, it's out now and stays out until 6 p.m. Sunday, tomorrow, and looking for possibly anywhere from 9 to 20 inches of snow by 6 p.m. tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening, with the 20 inches, if it does fall, would be over toward the Alaska range. And also winter storm warnings in the Fairbanks area through Sunday night, and they're looking for 6 to 10 inches of snow. And you can see the eastern Alaska range also has a winter storm warning out, as does the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country. So still looking at a slug of moisture coming up from the south there, so more snow. And then some winter weather advisories there for the upper Yukon Valley right on down into the central interior, Tanana, northern Kuskokwim Valley, winter weather advisory. And then back into a winter storm warning for Galena, and also up around, let's see, let me advance that to the next one that's farther to the north. And for Bettles in the Koyukuk Valley, as well as the southeastern Brooks Range. Nothing out in the west. In the coastal flood advisory for the Arctic coast, that's remains out until midnight tonight, and winds are coming down, still gusting 40 miles an hour at Point Lay this afternoon, but really coming down from what they have been. And out west, no warnings, watches, or advisories out. Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, southern Alaska, or the most of the panhandle south of Lynn Canal. Satellite showing a lot of moisture streaming northeastward, and then taking a turn to the east, coming over the top of a big ridge of high pressure that's south of the Gulf of Alaska over the northeast Pacific. And a couple of disturbances out in the Bering Sea, one coming into the toward Adak here this afternoon, another one farther to the north. And that kind of enhancing that cloud band there from the southwest coast down to the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. Cape Nonan picked up about an inch of precipitation in the last 12 hours, while Cold Bay had anywhere from 4/10 to about a half an inch of rain, while a quarter of an inch precipitation fell at Dillingham, King Salmon, and Igigik. And Kodiak picking up some rain, about 2/10 of an inch. Heavier down to the south, Akiak around just under half an inch, with gust winds picking up about 35 miles an hour there. Snow spreading northward, actually rain, Seldovia and Homer, and snow at Seward, with moderate snow at Kenai mid-afternoon today, and light snow pushing into the Anchorage area, and that'll continue to push north and east tonight. Otherwise, not a bad day there, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula area, and not bad over the Panhandle as well either, with kind of some passing cirrus and a few lower clouds, but winds are light and basically dry. On the chart today, high pressure is the reason. It was a pretty nice day there for the southeast coast. Otherwise, you can see the low center coming northward toward the Alaska Peninsula, with the warm front spreading a lot of moisture northward there, and we'll be picking up tonight with the snow in the north, kind of a very narrow band where it switches over to rain. So I just left it, just went snow to rain. Otherwise, areas of light snow. Indian Mountain picked up a couple of more inches today, but generally amounts were kind of light there, probably heavier on the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, though. And western Arctic coast had areas of light snow. Still pretty breezy there, but that low center weakening. Winds will continue to come down. And for tomorrow on Sunday, for tonight, okay, tonight, the low center comes up into northeastern Bristol Bay, or right over the Aleutian Range, give or take. Winds are already kicking up about 50 miles an hour at Augustine Island out of the northeast. And again, wind warning, winds will increase markedly across southern Alaska and the North Gulf Coast tonight, looking for heavy rain, moderate at times along the North Gulf Coast, roughly from about Cordova, southern coast of the Seward Peninsula into Kodiak Island, with storm force winds. And then the high wind warning again for the Turnagain Arm, higher elevations east Anchorage tonight. It'll be quite winds will be increasing really even across the Copper River Basin and right up to the Alaska Range. It'll be mostly dry over the northern interior. That low continues to weaken as it slides eastward. Keep a chance of snow at times going along the central Arctic coast. And a weak trough, some snow showers back over the northwest interior. Dry for the Seward Peninsula, dry for St. Lawrence Island. Look for snow into into the Kuskokwim Delta, eastern Yukon Delta, all of the Kuskokwim Valley. We'll see snow tonight, and then northwest winds might drop the snow levels back down to sea level along the Alaska Peninsula. As high pressure gives way over the Panhandle, you'll see pretty tight gradient approaches the north coast tomorrow with the heavy rain and increasing winds, storm force winds, North Gulf Coast and the north coast of the Panhandle, otherwise gales. Until you get to the extreme south coast, and there'll be small craft advisories, but periods of snow, south central Alaska and the Copper River Basin. Much of the southeast and central interior will be looking at snow tomorrow with the warnings and advisories out. And a band of light snow will continue there along the Arctic coast and to a lesser extent over the north slope. And then out to the west, next front comes into the Bering Sea there, spreading winds, gale force winds and rain. Probably won't make it to AKwx until tomorrow evening, early sometime. Then we'll see pretty good storm low center moves up into the northwest Bering Sea as that front, much weaker down toward the Aleutians, just some breezy conditions and periods of rain into the Fox Islands from AKwx, improving for AKwx. And then look for snow and blowing snow to push into the Yukon Delta and up across Seward Peninsula. That'll be trending toward mixing with rain as the warmer air flows in, especially behind the warm front, as the winds become a little more southerly and southwesterly. Central interior looking good. Kind of a break there between the trough over the eastern interior with some areas of light snow and snow showers that'll extend from the eastern Brooks Range around Arctic Village southward across the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country into the northeastern Copper River Basin, North Waitok, Nabesna, and maybe the Wrangell Mountains, but the mountains will be pretty light. Sunshine, clear skies, a little cooler again, kind of a mini cold snap coming in behind that, but it'll be short-lived with the next storm coming in from the west. And that low center kind of drops into the central Panhandle, so there'll be some light snow over the northern Panhandle, a mixture of rain and snow in the central areas, and rain, possibly moderate at times, over the southern southeast coast or Dixon Entrance. Lows tonight, upper mid-20s, northern Panhandle to upper 30s along the coast. And kind of range across Kenai Peninsula, 27, say in Anchorage and Palmer, to 42 for Homer and Soldovia, mid-20s to Sitna Valley, lower teens, Copper River Basin, and 5 eastern interior, 20s out to the west and 30 for the southwest coast. And then highs tomorrow, 20s for the Arctic coast, north slope, teens in the Brooks Range, and upper 20s to lower 30s for the central interior, lower 20s for the Eagle area, and mid to upper 30s Copper River Basin, and you can see up to the mid 40s for the Kenai Peninsula, upper 30s Anchorage area, and in the 40s over portions of the Panhandle, otherwise in the 30s. And moving on to lows for Monday morning. Single numbers, Brooks Range and probably the North Slope into the Kobuk and Noatak Valley areas, eastern Arctic coast, and back down into the teens for the central interior and northern Kuskokwim Valley, but still above freezing, mid to upper 30s for the southwest coast, lower 40s for the Pribilofs, Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians, and 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle, back into the 20s for south central Alaska, and down to 10 to 15 for the Susitna Valley. That'll be followed by highs into the lower 30s, lower to mid 30s south central Alaska, lower 40s southwest coast, 20s Tanana Valley, 40s for the Panhandle, and teens in the Brooks Range.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather, the first graphic here showing a lot of IFR across southern Alaska up into the west central interior, and then some VFR northeast interior from the eastern central north slope across the Brooks Range into the upper Yukon Valley, northern Kobuk and Koyukuk valleys, marginal VFR Seward Peninsula, IFR northwest coast into the Noatak Valley, central Arctic coast, IFR, marginal VFR eastern Bering Sea from the Bering Strait south across the Pribilofs to the Fox Islands, some IFR in Bristol Bay, and solid IFR Kodiak Island, North Gulf Coast, across the Gulf of Alaska to roughly Elfin Cove, and seeping into the Copper River Basin, and marginal VFR on the central and north coast of the Panhandle, maybe as far east as Lynn Canal, otherwise VFR. And then next batch IFR coming into Chimianat-2 with the next system. And that pushes eastward there in advance of the front to roughly Kiska over toward Adak in the afternoon. Otherwise, some VFR for Atka to Nikolsky and marginal for the Pribilofs, some VFR there in northern Bering Sea to roughly Nunavak Island. And Kodiak Island VFR, southern Cook Inlet becoming VFR, as well as northeast Bristol Bay and areas of the western interior there from the Kobuk and Selawik, Kobuk Valley, up in toward the Noatak Valley VFR, as well as eastern Norton Sound and the lower Yukon River Valley areas, but IFR North Slope, Brooks Range, Arctic Coast, and beginning to improve over Cook Inlet, but IFR hanging through most of the day for northern Cook Inlet, Manuscus-Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound, right on down across the Panhandle, northern Panhandle, marginal VFR to the south, and solid IFR there for the Tanana Valley up into the upper Yukon Valley, maybe marginal VFR along and just north of the Alaska Range there from roughly Eagle on down toward Northway, Tok, Chicken, and those areas. For the Monday morning outlook here, we've got that front coming across the Bering Sea, spreading IFR into St. Lawrence Island, down across the Pribilofs, and then dragging southwestward across Adak and Atka, becoming VFR Western Aleutians, and then VFR for the Fox Islands to start the day, marginal VFR Alaska Peninsula, and along the west coast and inland to the Kuskokwim Mountains and the Nulato Hills, up along the northwest coast, IFR Central Arctic Coast, North Slope, and coming down across the Brooks Range there in a narrow band, and then still a lot of IFR, but slowly beginning to improve there for the eastern interior. Marginal VFR for the Panhandle, IFR over toward the border. For the afternoon, now some IFR lingering there from roughly Petersburg, Wrangell, down toward Stewart and Hyder for the southeast coast, otherwise marginal becoming VFR up in the north. North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, South Central Alaska, Western Copper River Basin, northwest across central interior to the western Arctic coast. We've got a VFR zone showing up. Marginal VFR to the east and north of that area, and then another batch IFR rolling on in right across the Kuskokwim Valley, back to Kuskokwim Bay, Seward Peninsula, and up to the western Alaska Range, but not quite making it into the central interior. And then some IFR over the central western Aleutians, fair zone of VFR pushing in toward the Pribilofs. Passes tomorrow on to Tuvik, VFR to start becoming IFR probably by late morning and through the afternoon. Same forecast for Adigan, Lake Clark and Merrill, easy, IFR for Windy. Isabel, IFR the entire day. Montesta, IFR with northern entrance, so better be a little higher with the downsloping into the valley on the northern approach there. Teneda, though, IFR throughout the day. And Portage, IFR improving late. That probably won't, it'll probably be VF or IFR through the afternoon, then probably shifting to VFR during the evening. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR becoming IFR. And freezing levels, quite a gradient now along the North Gulf Coast, kind of making a rebound there, 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the Aleutians. And icing, considerable moderate rime icing here for the North Gulf Coast, roughly about Cook Inlet on down along the north coast of the Panhandle. And with that next system, a smaller area, but still two significant areas there with the western Aleutians, and the big storm coming into the southern Alaska area. And the jet stream, south to southwest flow, 75 to 80 knots, 110 knots up over the eastern North Slope, and 9,000 feet, pretty strong. 50 to 75 knots, southern Cook Inlet across the Kenai Peninsula into the eastern interior, and at 3,000 feet, 60 to 65 knot winds, northwest 55, Alaska Peninsula, northerlies 40 for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, more wind into the western Aleutians, possible severe turbulence, Kodiak Island, Kamishak Bay, the Aleutian Range, and eastern North Gulf Coast, otherwise light to isolated moderate chop 4th Southwest Interior.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is Eric Stevens, our good friend from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at UAF. And thanks for joining us, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be here, Dave.
And we love to hear about all the fascinating developments, new and old, and how we're using the tools here, especially around Alaska. And I've got to think that, satellite meteorology right now is a fascinating time to be involved in. If we go back to the first satellite, Tyros, back in 1960, I think is when we got some of those first pictures. Weather and meteorology probably changed that day for a whole lot of people, and it's still changing today, right?
Oh, you know it. Satellite imagery is so important, and it's getting better all the time. Yeah. Of course, never perfect, but especially for us in Alaska, where there are other data sets like radars and weather balloons are so thinly spread. Right. The satellite is the great equalizer because the satellite sees everything.
Right.
Yeah. Right. We've got one particular issue in volcanic ash detection.
That's a big deal here. Yeah.
You know it. If you fly an airplane into volcanic ash, your jet engine might just fail. And an airplane without engines is in a world of hurt. Sure. So if there's a volcano that goes off, satellite imagery is the way to track that plume of ash and to tell pilots this is where you need to not be to avoid this ash plume. And there's a phrase out there, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Okay.
Well, it turns out, what we're going to discuss today, that the difference is everything. There's a technique called channel differencing.
Okay.
That if you take one piece of the spectrum of what the satellite detects and a slightly different wavelength of that spectrum, even though those two images might look similar, magical things happen when you subtract one from the other. And they reveal information that was already there, but it was hard to find until you did that subtraction.
That sounds like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure when he's got those fancy glasses and he's flipping one up and back and forth. I mean, is this what we're talking about?
Well, let's go more highbrow and talk Michelangelo.
Oh,
so apparently Michelangelo made some amazing sculpture, and someone said, Michael, that's amazing. How did you do it? And Michelangelo's reply allegedly was, well, in that rock, the statue was already in there.
Right.
I just scraped away the unnecessary bits. In satellite meteorology, sometimes there are meteorological features that are in the data, but you can't see it until you combine or difference some of the channels.
Okay.
And we've got a case, good old Pavlov volcano goes off now and then.
Sure.
And you can observe directly a picture of the volcano. Just take it with your iPhone. You can see a volcano going off.
Yep.
Right. But if you want to get the broad view, we need satellite to do that. Now, there are a couple of wavelengths that we can look at. So what's a wavelength? That's the amount of space between a peak and a valley and another peak in a certain part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We're going to look at 12 micron wavelength and 10.8 micron wavelength.
What is a micron?
So what's a micron? Yeah, we're getting into the geek department now. A micron is a unit of length, and it is quite tiny. We're looking at what's called long wave wavelengths.
Okay.
But it takes 25,000 of these microns to make an inch. A human blood cell's about 5 microns across. So when we're talking about 12 micron imagery as allegedly long wave, well, that's relative.
Pretty short for light.
Yeah, it's other part of the, it's just an expression for the spectrum there.
Okay.
So we can look at a 12 micron image, say a satellite image. At 12 microns, we're seeing a heat signature here, really, and the way this color enhancement works is the yellow and the red stuff is high cold clouds down here over the Gulf of Alaska into South Central. And if you were asked, where do you find the volcanic ash plume in this image?
Hey, where do you find the volcanic plume in this image?
It's hard to do. I'm not sure I could find it. If you were to look at this image and just say, show me what jumps out at you here, I'd say, well, nothing really. Well, let's look. So 12 micron doesn't help us. Let's look at 10.8 microns.
All right.
All right, look at that. It's practically the same image. So where's this volcanic ash? Can't find it at 12 microns, can't really see it at 10.8, but when we subtract one channel from the other, magically the plume appears. The color enhancement here highlights the ash in blue.
Wow.
The information was already there, but we couldn't find it until we subtracted one channel from another.
Very interesting.
It's almost magical. Similarly, let's say you're looking for fog up on the North Slope. It's kind of a foggy neighborhood.
Sure.
in 11 micron and 3.9 micron. We've got a 3.9 micron image here. It's a big fuzzy blur over Barrow. We can't see where the fog is. But the information is lurking in there waiting for us to reveal it. All we have to do is find that difference between the 11 micron and the 3.9, and then this image becomes this image, and the fog bank jumps right out, and you can see it up there at Barrow. Now, you got to choose the right tool for the job. Like they say, you open your toolbox, all kinds of stuff in there. What do we need for this particular task? If you want to find volcanic ash, we look at 12 and 10.8 micron, find that difference. If you want to find fog, we'll look at 11 and 3.9 micron, find that difference. It's great, different tools for different jobs. Of course, there's always caveats and gotchas, but this fog procedure, it only works at night, because when the sun comes up, it gets in the way. So every product has its strengths and limitations, and in meteorology, the challenge is using the right tool for the right job, and these are some of those tools.
And discovery is still happening, even with meteorology. The weather's been around for a long time, but the tools that are being developed to understand the meteorology is fascinating and still very new science.
It's such a young science. We've come so far. I'm getting old enough now that I can literally say that, when I was a boy, we didn't have this kind of thing. And there's new things happening all the time. New satellites will be launched in coming years that will have better instruments than ever before. It's an exciting time, and this is so helpful for Alaska because satellites help fill in the gaps between other ways of observing the weather. Satellites, the great equalizer for Alaska.
Yeah, and help so many people stay safe in so many ways every day up here in the last frontier.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, protecting lives and property.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Eric. We love to hear about this fascinating information, and boy, it just makes me want to go watch satellite pictures all day. So hopefully we're inspiring more people to do the same thing, and just be curious. It's a wonderful thing. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's CS analysis completed Saturday afternoon, showing the westerly winds they've had up there, keeping that slot there north of the central and eastern Arctic coast, kind of expanding it a little farther to the west, compressing the ice back to the east, off to the east. But those winds are lightening up now, and so that will begin to slow and stop. Anyway, coastal water forecasts for tomorrow on the south coast, Prince of Wales Island along the coast there, south 30 knots, 9-foot seas, and we got gales for the central coast from the south-southeast at 35 to 40 knots, increasing as you head north. Storm warnings up there on the north coast from the east-southeast at 50 knots, seas 16 feet. Small craft advisories over the inside waters with the strongest winds. Looks as if they'll be there for Stevens Passage out of the east at 30 knots with 6-foot seas. And for Monday, lighter winds and swinging around to the west and northwest, south coast, west 25 knots, but seas still up at 20 feet, and northwest 20 knots with 18 to 19-foot seas on the north coast. Lynn Canal, north at 15, seas 3 feet, east 20 for Stevens Passage, and small craft advisories for Clarence Strait, southeast winds 25 knots, seas 5 feet. And for a Sunday, Prince William Sound, gales out of the east at 40 knots with 9-foot seas. We've got storm warnings for the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast winds 50 knots, seas 18 feet, and good gales for the western North Gulf Coast, as well as the Barren Islands, west-northwesterlies sustained at 40 knots, even stronger for Kamishak Bay, west at 45 knots. Southwest gales in the forecast for southern Cook Inlet, north of the Forelands, small craft advisory, southwest 25 with 5-foot seas. Moving on to the day for Monday, Prince William Sound, small craft advisories, northwest winds 25, seas coming down to 4 feet. And for the eastern North Gulf Coast around Middleton Island, winds will be northwest at 30 knots. Gales for the western North Gulf Coast, 35-knot winds, seas 20 feet. 40 knots out of the west for the Barren Islands with seas a little over 20 feet. Small craft advisories now, winds come down to 25 knots from the southwest for Kamishak Bay. Cook Inlet, south to southwest, 15 to 20 knots, 3 to 5-foot seas. Kodiak Island, gale warnings tomorrow, westerlies 35 to 40 knots with 35-knot winds extending from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Gale warnings for Bristol Bay, west 35 knots, seas 11 feet, and for the Alaska Peninsula, west winds 25 to 30 knots with 11 to 15-foot seas. Monday, gale warnings for the Alaska Peninsula on the Pacific side, Southwest 35 knots, 14-foot seas. Topside there, south 35 knots, 14-foot seas. Bristol Bay, south winds 30 knots and 10-foot seas. Southwest 30-knot winds from Castle Cape up to Sitkinak and up the east side of Kodiak Island. 11 to 15-foot seas. 25-knot winds from Shelikof Strait. Fox Islands tomorrow, say mostly west, 25 knots, 9 to 13-foot seas. Gales approaching Nikolsky in the afternoon, latter part of the afternoon, and full gales for the Adak-Atka area, southerlies 40 to 45 knots. Storm warnings for Amchitka Island, south 50 knots, and for Kiska to Shimia, west 45. On Monday, southeast 40 knots from Shimia to Kiska, south 40 knots for the Amchitka Island area. Adak and Atka, gales 35 to 45 knot winds from the south, and southerlies for the Fox Islands, pretty uniform now for Unmak and Unalaska Islands, south 35 knots, seas 16 to 22 feet. Southwest coast, small craft advisories there along the Kuskokwim Delta coast, west 25 knots, Yukon Delta coast, west 20 knots, southwest 25, St. Matthew Island, southwest 20 for the Pribilofs, northeast coming down to 15 knots, St. Lawrence Island. And for Monday, back into the gales there for St. Lawrence Island, out of the east 35 knots, southeast 35 for Norton Sound. Southwest coast, gales 40 knots, south-southwesterlies 45 knots there for the northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, 35-knot gales out of the southwest for the Pribilofs with 21-foot seas. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, southwest 20 on the extreme east side there. Otherwise, as you head west, they increase 25-knot brisk wind advisories there in the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Northeast 40 for the central coast, north 25 for the west side, and then 15-knot winds from the north from Cape Beaufort to Wales. And the outlook for Monday, Wales to Cape Thompson, east 30 knots for the central and west side, and then 20 to 25-knot winds out of the east on the east side. Tonight, high wind warning, Anchorage, Turnagain Arm, higher elevations of Anchorage, gusts 70 miles an hour. Winter storm warning for 9 to 20 inches of snow to Susitna Valley, and a bunch of snow with a winter storm warning in the Fairbanks area and other areas in the interior. And then for tomorrow, the storm pulls up into eastern Turnagain Arm and then slides into the Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.